Hey everyone, so I saw Moulin Rouge on Broadway in August, and I decided I want to share some of my thoughts with you guys. This is my first review on this channel, but I have done some more informal reviews on Tumblr. I might make this a regular thing if you guys like it. This review will contain spoilers both for the story and the production elements. All the pictures I use I took before the show, during intermission or during the curtain call, which is allowed by the theater. Also, for context, I sat in the center balcony row S, which is literally the very last row of the theater. Moulin Rouge the musical opened on Broadway this July. It stars Aaron Tveit as Christian and Karen Olivo as Satine. It's directed by Alex Timbers and is based on the 2001 Baz Luhrmann movie. First, I want to talk about what I thought was the strongest aspect of the show, and that was the sets and lighting. First of all, the show is an immersive experience. As soon as you walk into the theater, you're transported into the Moulin Rouge. The theater is flooded in red lights and covered in red drapes. There are also performers around the theater like dancers and sword swallowers. It's honestly just really beautiful and enhances the show a lot. There's also can-can seating at fancy tables right next to the stage, which I'm sure is amazing and even more immersive if you can actually afford it. I think they're like $400. The sets throughout really captured the fantastical feel of the movie. One of my favorite sets was in the scene where Satine is transformed by the Duke. The backdrop looks like a French painting and there is a literal frame around the stage. The colors are sort of bright pastel, which makes Satine stand out beautifully in her red dress. One of my favorite lighting moments was definitely Chandelier. It was lit up green to go with the absinthe and synchronized to the dancing, and it was mesmerizing. Now I want to go through some of my favorite numbers. The opening with Lady Marmalade, which is called Welcome to the Moulin Rouge on the cast album, really brought the audience into the show and created the atmosphere for the rest of the night. The second act opening with Bad Romance, which is called Backstage Romance on the album, was excellent and was definitely the best ensemble number and had the best choreography. It had a lot of energy and the two tango dancers were amazing. Crazy Rolling, which is the number towards the end of the show, I think brought out the best performances from the two leads. One of the coolest aspects of the show was that it opened and closed on a snap, which was really electric. It also led to the fastest standing ovation I've ever seen. The choreography was great, especially in Bad Romance and Roxanne. It was really high energy and just fit the vibe of the show really well. I was really pleased with Roxanne. Since that's my favorite number in the movie, I had really high expectations and it definitely lived up to them. As far as the cast goes, I was overall pleased. The two tango dancers played by Ricky Rojas and Robin Herter were definitely standouts. They had great chemistry and they were very funny. Danny Burstein was perfect as Ziedler. He had a lot of energy and threaded the show together well, which is kind of his job as the MC. Sar Ungaja as Lautrec was a good actor, but he did have some weaker singing moments compared to the rest of the cast. Aaron and Karen had very intense chemistry, and I think they both brought a unique take on the characters compared to the movie. Of course, vocally they did amazing. I think Aaron really captured the youthful innocence of Christian really well, a lot like Ewan McGregor did in the movie, but also played the character's anger towards the end very differently. For me, Tam Utu as the Duke was probably the biggest standout. The character of the Duke was very different from the movie, and I think he made it work really well and sold the intimidating nature of this version excellently. I want to talk about some of the changes from the movie to the stage version. At the core, they're the same story. Naive writer comes to Paris to experience the bohemian life and falls in love with the courtesan who is the star of the Moulin Rouge. But there are a lot of changes. The first change that I think worked really well is that Christian is a composer instead of a writer. This was a really smart change because it could be worked into the staging a lot better than him being a writer. Also, making Christian an actor in the play added a lot of tension to the ending, and I think probably made it more dynamic on stage than if he had just been a writer in the wings. There were a lot more changes to Satine's character than Christian's. I think in the movie, Christian is the main character, but in this version, Satine is definitely the main character. Part of this is that they flesh out her character more by giving her an actual tragic backstory, although the backstory was doled out in a kind of chunk of exposition which could have been smoother, but in general, she just has a lot more agency than she does in the movie. A lot of it is little things, like the fact that her disease is revealed to the audience by her and not by Christian, and also the fact that she chooses to tell the other performers about it rather than denying it. This is the same thing with her relationship with the Duke. She has a lot more say in what happens with him, even though Ziedler is ultimately the one making it happen. Overall, there's a lot more focus on the relationship between Satine and the performers and the camaraderie that they form. Definitely the biggest change was the character of the Duke. He's honestly just a completely different character than in the movie, but I personally enjoyed it. Instead of being a cartoonish, over-the-top villain, he's a lot more grounded. He's sexy and charming, but at the same time, he's a lot clearer with his threats, which makes him all that more menacing when he does threaten the other characters. His relationship with Satine is also a lot different. They do away with the whole Satine is saving herself thing, so Like a Virgin is cut. I think the best thing they do is make the Duke's offer to Satine a lot more compelling. He promises her what would be a very luxurious life as long as she stays faithful to him, which is especially appealing because she knows that she's going to die. It makes it a lot less obvious that she'll choose Christian. The Duke is still a terrifying, horrible man, and she loves Christian, but her choice is a lot harder. As far as a change that I didn't like, I wasn't super happy with the way that they incorporated Christian's narration. In the movie, it's a diegetic framing device that is explained by him writing a book about the events of the movie, but in the stage version, there isn't any explanation. He's just talking to the audience as a theatrical conceit. I think this could have worked, but it was only used a few times, so it felt out of place. I think they either should have used it more or completely done away with it. One thing that I was worried about at the beginning of the show was that it would take itself too seriously. They added in some social commentary about poverty and things like that, which I was a little worried about because I thought it would take over the plot too much. However, they didn't go too heavy with it, and the story was still very melodramatic and over the top, so I was pleased. Overall, I think the second act of the show was stronger than the first act. The numbers flowed into the scenes very well, and the pacing was perfect, and it also brought out the best performances from the two leads. The last thing I want to talk about is probably the most contentious aspect of the musical, and that is the integration of the songs. I haven't actually read any other reviews because I wanted this to be my own thoughts, but I have heard that a lot of people didn't like Firework. I don't think it was horrible or that the placement was bad, but I think the association I have with the song made it seem awkward. Like if I didn't already know the song, it would have been perfect. This is actually a larger issue in the show. While I personally didn't have any issue with the way songs were integrated, it was a problem with the audience I was with. This could totally be different night to night depending on the audience, but when I saw it, there were some reactions that I thought were inappropriate. There were some songs, particularly Chandelier and Firework, that the audience started laughing at a little bit before they realized it was a serious number, just because of previous associations they had with the songs. I really don't know how this could be fixed, because the songs they chose are so well known, and that's kind of the point. The laughing did stop after Chandelier though, I think because people realized that that was the turning point in the show where things weren't going to be fun anymore. On the other hand, sometimes the audience associations with the songs actually added something to the show. I could feel this sort of giddiness in the first act every time there was a new song that everyone knew. Sometimes the chosen songs were really funny at appropriate moments if you knew them, such as Never Gonna Give You Up. There were also a few instances where knowing the song added an extra meaning or sort of clued you in on what was to come. For me, this happened most clearly in Sympathy for the Duke, which uses Sympathy for the Devil, and in Crazy Rolling. It was like you hear the first few notes, and if you recognize the song, you're like, ooh, this is gonna be good. And that was just really fun and added a lot to the experience. All of this just makes me wonder what it would be like if you didn't know any of the music, although I highly doubt that of the 70 songs in the show that you wouldn't recognize at least one. So those are my thoughts on Moulin Rouge the musical. If you guys have seen the show, what did you think? Would you like to see more reviews like this? Also, I actually recorded myself talking to the people I saw the show with on the way home, so if you want to hear my unfiltered thoughts, let me know, I might upload it. Thanks for watching. Remember to like and subscribe and leave your thoughts in the comments below. Bye!